How do you know it's on and running?
I got the screen right here.
Oh, okay, that'll tell you.
Here.
Oh, okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I see it.
All right. Thank you very much for being patient with me. And thank you very much for inviting me to your house.
You're quite welcome.
Joe, I'm a big fan.
What's that?
I'm a big fan.
Oh, okay. We're recording now, right?
Yeah. No, okay. We're recording now.
All right.
I'm a very big fan of your work.
Thank you.
Many classics, both with Satanicon and the solo Joe Offred work. Yeah.
Recordings like Mockery and Perversion.
Mockery and Perversion is maybe my favorite.
Youthful Satanic Ecstasy.
Yeah.
Where I played this jockey with the disruptive employees, kind of, it's like part of a skit, kind of like I was influenced by Goulardi and people like that.
That was my first question. So definitely start with what was your inspiration as far as doing the spoken word stuff? Where did you get the idea, and how did you first begin doing that?
I got my first back in 1974 when I was 13. I got my first tape recorder. It was a lot more primitive. There was no internet then.
Yeah.
Everything was hard copy, and I had audio cassettes, but I didn't have any way of getting stuff out there back then. And so many years later, when the new technology came along, and I had access to send stuff out and make duplicate copies when I had the money, then I started doing it. But getting my audio recordings out. But yeah, my audio recordings, I can give you a good example. Goulardi, while he was on TV, used to say to people in the background, quote, with the boom booms over day.
Okay.
And so that's where I got, the idea about, stuff like that. And I was listening to a disc jockey on the radio one time. He said, who the hell stuck gum on my records? Because one of the records he was playing, it stopped partway through. And so I guess in real life, some people had disruptive employees or disruptive visitors. And so that's where I got my idea to make youthful Satanic Ecstasy and yell at the janitor. Like our custodian. Yeah, I was the only one there, but I was pretending that there was other people in the studio with me. I didn't have a studio. I was just at home. I was reliving my past at the time.
Yeah.
I did those recordings. Well, Youthful Satanic Ecstasy, I actually Mockery and Perversion also I did in my 30s.
Okay.
Some of them I did later. I don't remember when I did Satanic Trailer Trash, and that was maybe in my 40s. I was in my 40s, because I remember somebody came over and I was in the apartment days, and the apartment days ended right after I turned 50 when I inherited my mom's house, which I'm sitting in right now. I remember making that recording, and it was, I was in my 40s. Satanic Trailer Trash was because back in I'm not a Satanist anymore, but back when I was a Satanist, people, somebody told me that in trailer parks, people go to church, but I decided to use a little artistic license and say, oh no, how about Satanist Trailer Trash?
So do you remember the first one you did?
Youthful Satanic Ecstasy. That was my first public release recording.
93?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
92 or 93, I think.
And I love that. So when I go back and listen to these, there's a lot of reoccurring themes with a lot of them, especially Mockery and Perversion. Would you say Horny with a Chick is your biggest hit?
Yeah, it brought me more fans than anything. I mean, like when I suddenly realized, hey, I've sung it for years. I saw it, and they put a recording of it on the radio when Stella the Thrash Queen was around, now deceased.
Okay.
And then one day I realized, hey, I got a camcorder now. I could record myself singing Horny with a Chick, making the devil horns with my fingers. So I went ahead and did that. That was 2014.
Horny with a chick. Horny with a chick. Horny, 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 horny with a chick.
Yeah.
I love that with the horns.
Oh yeah, I put them more in front though.
See, that's why I gotta take lessons from you.
Yes.
When I listen to those, it seems like the biggest influence on it was early childhood infatuation, early childhood sexual experiences. Am I wrong in saying that?
Probably not.
I'm curious about that. Was that, so you were writing these songs, you were starting to do this when you were in elementary school, right?
Well, I made up the kindergarten thing. Originally, I think I made it in fourth grade. I sang and I kept it to myself for years.
Okay.
I said to myself, it was originally in kinder, ya ha ha, back in kinder, ya ha ha. But later on in life, it was in kindergarten. I
Had orgasms. Back in the kinder, I had orgasms.
Kindery in the kindery. Back in the kinder, I had orgasms.
So you wrote that was one of the first ones then.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm curious about the genesis of this. You're just singing this to yourself in class?
Wherever.
Wherever.
Yeah, quietly to myself.
You remember, is that based on a true story?
You mean the kindergarten orgasm?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would look up girls' dresses and get hard in the class. Or I remember one day in kindergarten, there was this, I was one of the smallest kids, but this kid was smart, and he was sitting there making ooh noises, holding his pant leg. I don't know if he thought he was trying to make out he was an owl, or he had to use a bathroom, and the bathroom was occupied. He was sitting there going ooh, ooh, and I wish it had been a pretty girl in a pretty dress instead of him.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so anyway, yeah.
Were you? And that's what I'm curious about. Did you feel alone in that at the time? Were you interested in looking at girls and stuff before other people were, or was that? Or was it?
Probably was. I mean, I remember too in kindergarten we had puzzles, a hard word puzzle, because back then there was no video.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Now. So we had these hard puzzles, and there was this one with this girl with this long dress, and in front of other girls, I would take the little piece and pull the dress off, trying to simulate taking the dress off.
And did anyone ever have a reaction to that?
I don't remember. I remember some girls saying that I kissed the puzzle, but I don't remember kissing the puzzle.
But you might have kissed the puzzle.
It's possible.
You wouldn't put it past yourself?
No, I don't put it past myself.
I wouldn't put it past myself either. So that's what I was curious about. I really thought that I was like, wow, this guy was really on this early.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember another thing at home one time. I drew some kind of a picture it was either a guy with a penis or a woman with a penis, because, at that time I was pretty naive and innocent. Parents back then protected their kids from, in general, both.
Yeah.
So I drew it. My mom saw it and she said, "We're going to take this and we're going to put it in the wastebasket."
Okay. And did that hurt at all? Were you proud of your art?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was a little upset that she took it, and it's like, why? I didn't know what the big deal was, really.
I wouldn't have known either. I had experiences like that when I was that age too. I remember I remember one time I corrected the teacher and I got a detention for it, and I didn't mean, I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I didn't know what that meant.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, when I hear that, I do think, I'm like, man, he was really horny really early.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I would sit there, and we had those desks, where we open up the thing, and our books and our pencils were in there, and the part of this that came out over the seat was in just the right position. I would take my fist like this, and I would hump my fist against the desk under the chair. And I thought I had discovered something that nobody else knew about. Little did I know that. I told her, and years later, when it came out in the oven, my mom said, "No, Joe, you're not unique."
What were your parents? Were they religious? growing up?
No, they weren't born again or anything like that. My mom was Catholic. My dad was Jewish.
Did you go to services or anything, or were you pretty secular?
To Catholic Mass when I was little, up until about first grade, second grade. Then they had me in a Jewish Sunday school for a year, but they quit going. I found out in later years the reason they stopped going was because they had limited off-street parking, and I guess they didn't, I don't know, maybe they didn't agree with everything that was told or whatever. They're not here to ask. They're gone.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
Limited off-street parking is definitely a big barrier of entry, especially gigs now. Once you get older, that's one of the first questions you ask. They say, you want to come see a band? I say, is there parking?
Right. Yeah, my parents had me late in life. Mom was 38 and a half. My dad was 37 in round figures when they had when I was born.
Okay.
He had been married 6 years, so it was a little bit unusual for 1961 because most people then had kids at a much younger age. I mean, even if they held off, they at least probably had them right after college.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those who just took vocational and went and married right after high school probably had them sooner.
Were they, were your parents supportive or shocked at any of the artistic output you were coming up with at the time?
Yeah, I don't know if I even revealed too much of the artistic stuff.
Okay.
About it, I probably kept some of it to myself, but I mean, I would do, funny stuff like Boykin's doggy. When you're a kid, you say doggy.
Yeah.
And I always thought, because I like bindings, and I thought dogs like bindings, and so I would make these chants about bindings. I was doing it I remember in sixth grade, I was on the safety patrol, and I was stationed at a place halfway down the road between where two crossing guards were, and there was a little rock I could kick. It was a little loose, so I was rocking it. I'd rock back and forth, and I'd sing, buy a pack of bindings for only 50 cents. There were bindings, took you by the good. Buy a pack of bindings for only 15 cents. And some girl snuck up on me, trying to figure out what I was saying, and then she was like, God! Yeah, I was like, I wasn't too happy that she snuck up on me. I felt a little embarrassed.
Yeah. You weren't ready to release that one to the world yet?
No, not really.
Was there a long incubation period then? You had been kind of singing these songs yourself. At what point?
Oh, yeah, there was.
At what point were you like, I got to go public with it?
Well, I know I told some people, when I was in the psych ward, I told about that, and there was this tall teenager, 14 years old, already 6'4", 250 pounds. I mean, he shouldn't have been getting mad about, since he sometimes shit his drawers and threw the underwear under the bed. He had, some real problems.
Yeah.
I think what happened is his mind couldn't keep up, his body couldn't keep up with his mind or something. They say that some people were big before their time. But anyway, he would get mad. He'd say, I'm going to beat somebody up if I hear Boykin's doggy again in group therapy.
Yeah. Was there opinions from everyone else there?
Oh, yeah, lots of opinions. But like I had this thing where I would twirl my lips and go Bruce, and because there was some kid in elementary school, I remember, and I used to do it just to see what his reaction would be. I'd go Bruce around him, he would just pretty much ignore me. But anyway, when I got to I became obsessed with doing that, wondering about people's reactions, and I did it among my friends. I said to my friend Rick, I can say McGowan's first name. I go Bruce, and one time he said to me, well, I can say it too, Bruce, and I said it another time and twirled my lips. He said, you can't say it normally. You got to say it like a mental. Because all my life in school, people were saying, are you normal, Joe? You're not normal, or why can't you just act normal and stuff like that?
You were freaking everyone out?
Yeah, I guess so.
And how did you feel like what you were wielding with these songs was threatening?
No.
You thought it was innocent fun?
Yeah.
That's how I perceive it too.
Yeah.
Is the Bruce with the lip twirling, is that from Don't Bring Me Down by Electric Light Orchestra?
No, I made that up long before they came along.
Really? So they stole it from you?
Could have. Actually, they're saying Bruce.
Okay.
It sounds like they're saying Bruce, and I thought maybe they got it from me. But
were you like, what the fuck when you heard that song?
yeah, I was. But anyway, when I was in the psych ward one day, I decided to go behind the curtain of the window and twirl my lips and go Bruce, and then I decided to tell the staff I was doing it because I thought that maybe it was a bad habit. And I figured if they could get me to break the habit of twirling my lips saying Bruce, I could conquer other stuff and be normal and be accepted more by people. Not that I didn't have friends or anything, but a lot of people thought I was odd, strange, different.
Yeah.
There's different people in my life, including Jim Codney. He said, don't you think you might be a little bit different? And then somebody who used to know me in high school, I was about 10, 11 years later, I was in a mental health socialization group, and this one guy who knew me from high school was there too, and he said, you are one who is definitely different.
That's so funny.
Yeah, because I was singing that Ghoul song, Papa Ooh Bow Bow, Papa Ooh Bow Bow, real loud.
Yeah.
And so he thought I was different. But see, you have to understand, at that time I was hell-bent on this idea that the girls were going to think I was cute for it.
Okay. And did that ever work out?
I guess not really. I mean, there were girls that yelled, jam it, trying to egg me on to do it. But, I don't know that they really liked me. There was one of them who said it and thought I was cute, and I probably could have gotten to go out with her, but see, at the time I was working out on weights and he was a stoner, and I didn't really want to get involved with pot and stuff. Yeah. Because that interferes with bodybuilding.
Okay. And you were getting pretty jacked at the time.
Getting what?
Jacked.
Yeah.
You were getting big?
Kind of, yeah.
What was your routine like?
I did exercises for every little muscle, but I was young when I could do it then, and I was in better shape. I was able to push at my maximum. I was able to take 270 and laying down in the bench press position. I couldn't do a full rep of it, but I could lift it off the rack, which I figure was pretty good for a guy with a medium bone structure, who at the time weighed, I was 5'10". I'm probably the same height, but then they say you shrink when you get older.
Okay.
And I only weighed in the 160s, so I figured I was pretty strong for my size.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's pushing weight for sure.
I was hoping to be like Schwarzenegger. He was my idol. And I used to always work out. When I'd work out on weights, right before I would work out and right after, I would look at his muscles and say, I'm going to be just like him. I would concentrate, think, I thought I was going, he was said at the time to have the most perfectly all-around developed body, maybe not the strongest, but the most perfectly developed body. Well, I was going to be just like him. Plus, I was also going to be the strongest man in the world if I had my way. So I thought.
How close did you get?
Not even close.
But it definitely built you up to get there.
Right, yeah. I mean, Schwarzenegger was my idol, but I was told later he took steroids. People in school asking me, do you take steroids? But I didn't take steroids. I thought I could just do it the natural way. Yeah. A lot of people feel that. And I reached a sticking point where for regular, bench pressing without cheating, the most I could ever do was like 160 for 11 or 12 reps. Mm-hmm. Which meant that my maximum was like 210 to 220 or so.
So I love that. So what brought you to the psych ward?
Well, I became too obsessed with this younger girl, this girl named Diane Rosson.
Okay, a classic. To anyone familiar with the Joe Offred mythology, this is canon event.
What about it? What about Joe Offred mythology?
I said to anyone familiar with the Joe Offred mythology, Diane Rosson is integral to the plot. Yeah,
I started crushing on her when I was 13 and she was 9.
Okay.
And by the time I was 17 and she was 13, she wasn't noticing me, and I got frustrated, and I started getting on the on payphones and making calls to her house. At first it was just goofy, silly calls where I made funny noises, and her mom said, "Can't you talk?" I did it, in school. Sometimes I'd cut a class. Sometimes I would finish lunch early and go out on while my lunch break was still on and do it. And so she said, "Can't you talk?" And so that prompted me to start talking. And I claimed to be, the person I claimed to be was actually an ex-friend of mine. We were in friends at that point, this guy named Doug. But she said to me, Mrs. Rosson said to me, "Why do you do this? We never did anything to you. Our daughter never did anything to you." And I know it wasn't right at the time, but I figured, she's worried about the safety of her daughter. I'm going to have some fun and give her something to worry about. So I started saying, "I'm going to rape your daughter, and then I'm going to burn your house down." See, earlier in the year, some guys, they knew I had a crush on a different girl or girls I was talking about, and they said, "You should rape them. They love to be raped." Well, I pretty much knew that wasn't the case, but I felt kind of egged on by the rape thing.
Did you think that was going to lead to a romantic liaison?
No, I didn't think that. I just felt I had nothing to lose, and she would never like me or whatever. I mean, I could have at that point, instead of going the way I did, I could have thought, well, I'm doing this because I want your daughter's attention and she's not noticing me. And I wish I had done it that way instead.
You're saying just been more direct about.
Yeah, I wish I had been more direct.
They seemed confused by it. They didn't understand what your intention was.
I guess not. But Mrs. Rosson would say, "Why would you want to rape my daughter?" And I'd say, "Oh, just for fun."
And what did she say to that?
Huh?
And what did she say to that?
Well, after a while, when I said I'm going to rape your daughter, she said, "Oh, you've said that before." So at that point, I started chanting like 3 or 4 times, "I'm raping your daughter tonight." And then I hung up the phone. I was going to let her sweat for a while at the time, but then I just couldn't stop playing with the phone. So I started making more calls to her, going from payphone to payphone, so I couldn't get caught so easy, all over town. Just making her answer the phone and logging all the calls. The only reason she found out who was doing it, found out my name, is because I was in the payphone outside, and I had done it to this other ex-friend, Rick, who was in St. Ed's with me that year. And I guess he was informed that I had called his house pretending to be him. And when they accepted, they found out it wasn't him. And they said, "Why don't you just drop dead?" And I had a reputation for making prank phone calls anyway.
Okay.
To begin with.
Yeah.
So anyway, he ran out there. He saw me in a payphone, and I guess he was trying to catch me calling his house. But and I wanted the Rossons to know who I was, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them who I was, so I decided to let him do it. And he said, "Give me the phone, don't hang up." And then he told me to leave, so I left, and I just went back to class, straight to class. It was before even the tardy bell rang. I made it back there, so that if anything came up, I could say, "What are you talking about? I'm in class now."
Yeah.
I've been making the call. So anyway, I guess he talked to her, and she found out who I was from her, and I guess they probably traded numbers, because later that evening, my mom had me in a reading tutoring thing, downtown Cleveland at Cleveland State. And on the way down there, I stopped at a payphone and called Rick's house, and pretending to be my other friend Doug, because the three of us used to all be friends, and they used to come into the guidance office with me to try to help the counselor to help me to become more normal back in 7th grade.
Okay.
And so, but we weren't friends any longer. And so I was using Doug's name, and Rick kind of played along with it. And then I clicked the operator back on. There was a lot more live operators working back then before automation took over.
Yeah.
But anyway, he asked where the call was coming from, asked, "Is it from Fairview Park?" And the operator said, "No, it's from a payphone somewhere in downtown Cleveland." And so he logged the number, said it was very important. He got the number. And so then later that evening, you'll see that evening, my mom's pickup truck had come to pick me up to take me to my thing, but the truck wasn't starting, so she just called my dad at work and had me meet up with him after work. And in the meantime, on the way down there alone, I stopped at the payphone and made a call, and then my dad and I met up, and we went back to where my mom was, and then we got a tow truck And my parents went with the tow truck driver, dropped me off at home. So I was home alone, and I called Rick directly and pretended to be Doug again, and he played along with it. And he said, told him, played along like he really believed it was me, but I knew he was just playing along. But he said, we got a call from Joe earlier. It came from a payphone downtown. And he said, where do you think Joe could be right now? Do you think he could be at home? Do you think he might be still downtown or whatever? And he was saying, where can Joe go to get help to become more like one of us, one of the normal people?
So, and then that's when they sent you.
Not at that point. No, okay. I wasn't caught yet. I called directly from Holmes, and back then the calls couldn't be traced so easy.
That's crazy to think of because it's really easy. Now, when did you eventually get caught?
Oh, that was probably it was 2 weeks later. It was about 2 weeks later after he took the phone out of my hand.
Okay.
Because, it was a few days later on a Monday, I was called in. Well, one of the priests said that he had gotten a call from the phone company, and he had to talk with me that I better cut it out if it was me and it wasn't funny and all that. And then later that evening, I was informed in advance, but the officer in charge of arresting offending juveniles came over to my house, sat here right in this living room where we're sitting now. Wow. Had a talk with me and my parents, telling me if I was doing it, I better cut it out. But I denied it. In fact, when he mentioned the name Rossons, I said I denied even know ever. I said that, told him I never even heard of the Rossons before. I totally lied in my teeth at the time.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there grinning and laughing the whole time because it was so funny. The police officer sitting there with the serious look on his face. I just couldn't help being.
And you were just compulsively mischievous.
Yeah, at the time. I'm 60, almost 64 now, but I was 17 then.
Yeah.
But he wanted me to cut it out, and I didn't listen. I kept on going after school, going to places where there was lots of payphones around, like downtown. There was 3 department stores at the time, Higbee's, Howie's, and May Companies, and every floor had payphones, plus there was payphones in the terminal tower and outside on Public Square, and I was just going from payphone to payphone, making them get calls and log all these numbers, and I was just having a
You were really fucking with them.
Yeah, I was having a good time. Up the elevator, use a phone, take the elevator, the escalator, back down a few floors.
Dude, you were a menace.
Yeah, I was at the time. And, anyway, one day in school, they had a different hierarchy. Like public schools, they just have a principal, assistant principal. Well, down here, they had a president, a principal, a dean, and an assistant dean. Well, one day, the assistant dean called me, gave me a notice at homeroom to come up to see him, and I went up there. I was going to see him, but then there he wasn't all. He said, "Hey, Joe, come here," and I decided instead to dart out the door and go down the street to a payphone, and I kind of wanted to get caught, and I was tired of not getting caught in a way, I think, if I remember my mind my mind was at the time. So I just stayed on that payphone for a while, I believe maybe about 45 minutes, and Diane was at home that day. I don't know if she was sick or they had her at home as bait. I suspect they had her as bait. They somehow put 2 and 2 together and figured out I liked her or something.
Okay.
Because I used to go to the bowling alley and sit there where she was bowling. I mean, she never came to me and said, "Do you like me?" or "You're wasting your time." She didn't say anything. Neither did her mom. Her mom just gave me funny looks.
Yeah.
She knew. And the reason she knew that is because the year before, when I was in 6th and she was in 3rd, and I started noticing in the hallway, and it was just the 2 of us passing each other, I'd say, "Hey, kid." And I said it a few times till finally she looked at me and said, "Kid, you're weird." And then the following year, I was in the grocery store with my mom in the checkout line, and then I saw her 2 checkout lines over, and I started singing "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" like Alvin the Chipmunk in the cartoon. It was the first thing that came to mind to try and get her attention. And anyway, as she went out the door to her mom, I said, "Hey, kid, hey, kid, kid, hey, kid." But she didn't turn around that time, nor did her mom, but I think they knew probably. Because the following week the next day I bowled in my own bowling league, and I found out that she bowled in the elementary school league on a Friday afternoon, the same one I'd been in the year before. So I started going up there and seeing her, and her mom came eventually and was sitting at a table nearby, and she just kept looking over at me. So I don't know if she suspected that I had a liking for her daughter or what, or she knew that I had said, "Hey, kid." Mm-hmm. Neither her mom or her or Diane said anything to me, and I didn't, tell anybody really. I think I may have told my two friends in the guidance office and the guidance counselor about it, because years later, Doug and I became friends for a short time again, and he told me that I used to always talk about her in the guidance office.
Yeah.
But did
you ever think you had a chance?
I thought I might have. I thought maybe if I could do something big, like write a book or something, or get straight A's in school, it would somehow get back to her and she would want to go with me.
Because you needed something. You couldn't just walk up and...
I was afraid of her rejection.
Yeah, I was afraid of rejection too when I was a kid.
Yeah. I figured if she rejected me, my life was over.
That's how I felt too. So I was just too scared to try.
Right. But I know it sounds screwed up, but I know it would have been easier if I had at least tried and been ready to accept rejection, but I just couldn't be that way. And so I got so frustrated that I actually did something that made it harder for me to get her.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, going back to when I went down after that, the assistant dean tried to get me to come to his office. I think he might have been trying to warn me that the police were trying to close in on me, because earlier that day I used a payphone in the school. It wasn't the first time I used a payphone in the school, but while I was using it in the basement, and earlier, about an hour before the assistant dean came to get me, the phone, the talk piece kind of shorted out, and I could hear Mrs. Rosson, but she couldn't hear me anymore, and she kept clicking the receiver saying, Joey, I know you're still there.
So you could tell then she knew it was you?
Yeah. Well, yeah, she knew it was me, because my ex-friend told them.
Okay.
And if I had quit cold turkey then, there probably I wouldn't have been in any trouble or anything, but I just was overwhelmed with compulsion to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, there I was down the street after the assistant dean tried to call me into his office, probably to warn me. And I was down there at the payphone, and I stayed on for a while. And Diane was home, maybe as bait. And right before I was caught, right before the officer pulled up in a unmarked car, he was standing there. I didn't even know it. And I said a few moments before I was caught, said to her, and I always talked in a high voice, to disguise my voice so that the recordings, they wouldn't be able to say, yeah, that's his voice. It would be disguised.
You're a mastermind.
Yeah. So I said to her, "You're cute." She's like, "You think so?" And I went, and I made a loud kissing noise. And she said, "Did you blow a kiss at me, Joey?" And I looked, and there was the officer.
Right when you were finally getting to it.
Yeah, right when I was finally getting to it. He ruined my fun at the time.
And then what happened?
Well, I started opening the payphone. I was going to make a run for it, but he was real fast, and he ran over and he trapped me in the payphone. And I tried to hang up the phone hoping it would cut off and he wouldn't have any proof and wouldn't be able to arrest me. But he picked up the phone, and they were still on the other end, because the line was, back in those days, they put taps on the phone to try and catch him and catch me. I was even warned that phones were going to be tapped. My parents' phone here, the landline, was tapped so they could monitor what calls went out of here.
Yeah.
But I knew, I was smart enough, I knew not to call them from home.
Wow.
But I did it from payphones. But my two ex-friends, Doug and Rick, and the Rossons, they had taps on their phone.
Wow.
And so, I just stayed on the phone too long, and that's how the officer was able to get down there.
So, and then what happens?
Well, he took me to his car, and he eventually transported me to my house to put me in custody of my parents until the court hearing. And the assistant dean, he said I was suspended from classes, and I had to come there to do all my final schoolwork and final exams in his office. He made me go and get everything out of my locker, bring it down there, and basically that's where I did all my school stuff for the rest of the year. And it was only about a week or a little over a week of school left to go. But I was basically put in custody of my parents until the court hearing, pretty much. But I still kept making phone calls for a while after that. I was caught on a Thursday, 2 weeks after that. My ex-friend snitched on who I was doing it. And that very night, I ran away to Norwalk. The priest took me in and gave me steak dinner, but he said, I'm going to show my Christian concern and call your parents to have them come and get you. And so they came to get me and took me back home. And I guess the next day I slept in and eventually went to school late. And then there was fights with my parents because of the phone calls and knowing that they were going to have to get a lawyer and all. And so I was running away because of that. But the only place I really could go was this runaway shelter. But I stayed out and went there late on a Saturday night, 2 days after I was caught. And there was a worker there that said that I could stay that night, but I had to go home the next day. The next day, instead of going straight home, I went down the street to a payphone and started making calls.
You couldn't stop.
No, I couldn't stop. And this time her dad was home. He wasn't home the other times, but they wouldn't accept my collect calls this time. He said, no, tell that punk to wise up.
Yeah.
He said to the operator. And then Mrs. Rosson came on the phone sometimes and said, can you tell me where he's at? Because police are out looking for him. And the operator said, well, it's somewhere down in University Circle. And then since he wasn't accepting my call and I had a little extra money on me, I put in 15, 20 cents, whatever payphone local calls cost, and got her on. And when she heard my voice, she said in a slightly upset voice, Joey, our son-in-law is coming home from the Navy on Thursday and he's not going to like the way you've been treating his sister or his mother. He's going to find out who you are and he's going to come out looking for you, you punk.
Yeah. Were you worried?
Maybe a little bit, but it never happened.
Yeah.
I didn't know what she meant by son-in-law because as far as I knew up to that point, Diane was an only child. It was a few years later when I was 22. I was getting ready for work. It was a Saturday morning. My dad brought me the Plain Dealer newspaper obituaries. Mrs. Rosson had just passed away.
Wow.
The obituary was in the paper. And for many years, I thought that I may have hastened her death or caused her death through stress and just wasn't able to be charged with it. But I found out in more recent years from somebody who used to be friends with her that I didn't know was friends with her that Mrs. Rosson actually fought cancer for a long time. She didn't say what kind of cancer, but I think it might have been breast cancer. And eventually, a few years ago, her dad passed away. He was still in the same house. And I thought that he just simply went to a nursing home or something because I had found evidence online that he had some connections with somebody in North Olmsted. He had a P.O. box. And there was a 50-year-old woman there that wasn't, same family name. I figured maybe she was a friend of the family and a nurse and she was taking care of him. But after a while, I figured out, no, he may have passed away. And I knew where Mrs. Rosson was buried. So I called up the cemetery to ask if by any chance he had passed away. And sure enough, he had. He was buried next to his wife. So that's why the house was up for sale. And actually, while I was doing bulk garbage picking to get sellable stuff, I one night stopped there on the old Rosson curb. Well, nobody was actually living there at the time. Diane had the house up for sale, I guess. From online evidence, I found out. Well, I found a small pill bottle that used to be Mrs. Rosson's from back in the 80s before she passed away. I still got it.
What did they after you get caught? Is there a restraining order or something?
No.
What was the punishment?
Well, what happened was I eventually went to the psych ward 2 weeks.
Oh,
after,
and then this is how you got to the psych ward.
Yeah.
Okay.
After I had.
Did they seem threatened by you? Were they scared, or were they just like, get some help?
Yeah, I was told when I got out in between psych ward stays because I had to go back by orders of the juvenile court. But this guy Rick, my ex-friend, we kind of seemed like we had reconciled. He was being nice to me. I had apologized for the phone calls. I had apologized to the Rossons for the phone calls, but I asked him. I tried to see if he would help me out and put in a good word for me.
This is in the court or something?
No, not in court. This is over the phone. He told me that Diane was still scared of me.
Oh, okay.
Because she was afraid.
And you were. She
was afraid to go to school because of me.
And were you hoping you might still have a chance?
Yes,
I would have been too.
Yeah. But anyway, I finally got see what happened was I went to the psych ward. I was there like 2.25 months through most of the summer until I think it was August 23rd. The date sticks out in my mind because a fellow patient had a birthday on that date.
Okay.
And
your recollection is astounding.
Yeah. But anyway, what I don't remember is what date in September I was readmitted or the exact date of juvenile court date, because that's all expunged. I got it expunged when I got older. But I know when I got out of the psych ward, the probation officer said, don't make any phone calls at all to anybody or I'm going to put you next door. I got into a fight with my dad and went out of the house, and I was bored. I was going to go to the runaway shelter, the safe space station, but there was one worker there who worked till 1, and I figured he would just send me back home. So in the meantime, I had nothing better to do but get on the payphone and make more calls. But I did it to different people in Fairview Park, 3 of her classmates, figuring, if I did it to them instead. It was a dumb idea because it was the same modus operandi, or as they say, or method of operation. And so they just figured it was me. I tried to deny it, but they didn't believe me. I was in the detention home for 5 days, which wasn't too pleasant. And then I went back to the psych ward for another 4.5 months. Then I went down to Harding Hospital. But in court, the Rossons were there. And I tried to apologize and all. And they asked my parents, each of them got to speak. I got to speak. My lawyers got to speak, and the Rossons got to speak. When Mrs. Rosson got her chance, and the judge said, "Do you have anything to say?" And she said in a crying or half-crying voice, "Yes, we have a 13-year-old daughter, and she's been threatened with rape." I was 17 at the time.
Yeah. So
I was a juvenile myself, but an older juvenile.
Yeah.
And so anyway, she either said rape or rape and murder. I can't remember exactly which. And then when Mr. Rosson got his chance to speak, he started yelling at the judge, saying that there wasn't enough justice. He wanted me to be locked up and have the key thrown away. And the judge, to quiet him down, said, "Mr. Rosson, this is a courtroom. If you don't settle down, I'm going to have to ask you and your wife to leave." And he said, "Well, don't you have any way of protecting your citizens from people like this punk? My wife is on pills because of this punk." And he had also earlier, he had said, "You tell this punk not to do something, he won't listen. He goes ahead and does it anyway. He thinks he can get away with it." Well, they finally had both of them leave, and were told that if they want to know what the final decision was, they could call juvenile court and they would inform them. And so,
wow, so they weren't happy about that.
No, yeah, they were not very forgiving in court at all. And at the time, I wasn't into Satanism at all at that point. In fact, when they had me in a room at the juvenile detention center waiting to be transported back to the psych ward, I was hoping that wouldn't happen. I was hoping I would go home. I was hoping the Rossons would not only forgive me, but let me date their daughter.
And she would want to date you.
I guess not. Probably. I was hoping she'd forgive me too.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was in that room saying, "Oh God, how can you do this to me?" And so the lady who was sitting outside there working at the desk, she was looking at me funny. And then the guy who came to get me said, "Quit putting on an act." I told him it's not an act, but he just ignored me. Then I was taken back to the psych ward. Then I spent 3 months down in Harding Hospital in Worthington, a suburb of Columbus. And for some weird reason, the juvenile court did not inform my psychiatrist or any of the staff that I was under the jurisdiction of the juvenile court. So my doctor thought that I didn't have a probation officer anymore. And in group therapy, he said, "Joe still wants a probation officer," which wasn't true. I don't know why he said that, but anyway, eventually, when I got to go back home, there was two lawyers. There was one who was free. He worked with juveniles at the free clinic, which was connected with the safe space station runaway shelter. And then I had the one my parents hired, and my mom gave the other one strict orders that he would take orders from the one they hired. He was the boss of the whole thing. At any rate, when I was in Harding, they were not aware that when I turned 18, they told me I could sign myself out if I wanted to. And that's eventually what I did.
And that's all you had to do?
Yeah, I had you submit what you call a 3-day letter where the staff, the psychiatrist, they evaluate, is he well enough, sane enough to go out in the world, to be discharged? And if you are, then they discharge you.
And they approved you? Yes. Do you think they should have?
Yeah, because I don't think they were doing anything for me there.
Yeah. How was it in the psych ward?
Well, it wasn't bad. I mean, I got my 3 squares a day and everything. And Harding wasn't bad, except that it was run by Seventh-day Adventists who don't believe in feeding you real meat.
Okay.
Yeah, they gave you protein instead.
Jeez.
I mean, I still got filled up well enough. I mean, I had a ravenous appetite then, and I would eat till I was bloated there.
Yeah, me too.
And I got to work in the kitchen as a dishwasher. So while I was working as a dishwasher, then I really had access to food.
And then after that,
I came home, and for a while there, it seemed like the juvenile court had forgotten all about me. And but then one day, my dad came home and said he ran across Mr. Violi, that was my probation officer, on the street while he was on lunch break. He couldn't avoid him. And my probation officer asked, "Where's Joe now?" And he had to tell him the truth. And shortly after that, we got a court summons that we had to go back to juvenile court and appear in court. And when we did, when we got there to juvenile court, the judge put me on a 90-day suspended sentence to the Ohio Youth Commission, Reform School, whatever. And in that 90 days, if I broke the law at all, they could, put me away for however long, probably up till I was 21.
Okay.
But anyway, I behaved myself, I was making some prank calls to people out, like down in Akron or Columbus, random strangers. But I didn't get caught. So as far as they knew, I did fine. They released me from court jurisdiction, and the judge, with a warning, said if you get in trouble with the law anymore now, it'll be handled in adult court.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Was that the end of you and the Diane Rosson saga?
Well, yeah, I knew I better not call her or go near her because I'd be in trouble again. So I didn't dare call over there. But anyway, and I didn't see this coming. I went back to school. I came home from Harding Hospital in May. It was too late to go back to school. I went back to school for 11th grade. A few months later in September, I was 2 years behind. I should have been in my first year of college, but I was starting 11th grade. And I did those 2 years at school. But in 11th grade, I was half a day at Lakewood for vocational graphic arts till I got kicked out. I purposely got myself kicked out because I was not very well liked by the other kids. I was getting kind of harassed by them. And so I photographed a penny, one of the photography equipment, on purpose to get myself kicked out. And I succeeded. So for the rest of the year, I just did my 2 classes, English and history, at Fairview. And then the following year, I was a senior in high school. Now, here's what I didn't see coming. I had a typing class in 12th grade, and it was a mix of sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And I said to myself, well, I hope Diane isn't in my class now because she'll find out who I am. And if she has a boyfriend, she'll tell him. But that's just exactly what happened.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So Diane was in the typing class.
Yeah. Well, see, they call your name for attendance. And so I had to say here. And so now she knows who I am.
Oh,
what I look like. It started out slow. I mean, there was a fire drill, and her boyfriend was just kind of giving me funny, dirty looks, trying to size me up outside.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started following me around saying, "Don't even look at her."
Yeah.
And then I reported him a couple times. I was an adult. He was a juvenile. You know, I can't be beating up juveniles.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was working out, but even still, you know, Diane Rosson has a uncanny ability to get some guys obsessed with her.
So you weren't the only one.
Probably not. No, I mean, it's just a feeling I have about her.
Yeah. Okay. I see.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but sometimes when I'd see her, it's like my heart started racing.
Yeah.
Thumping, and I suddenly feel like, yeah, if I only had her love, I'd turn into a Superman, and any of my enemies, I would just throw them through the air. It's probably just my imagination, but that's what I started thinking.
But it was too strong to really pursue it.
Yeah,
because that made the fear of rejection come up.
Yeah,
I felt the same way when I was girls when I was younger.
Yeah. Anyway, the second semester, I ended up having a gym class, and her boyfriend was in my gym class with me. He didn't beat me up or anything, but he came up making fake punches like he wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like, he was just kind of harassing me and stuff, and threatening to break my neck and all. And one time in typing class, I turned to look at the clock to see how close it was before it was time to leave class and go home. And she saw me looking over, and I knew by the look she was going to tell her boyfriend, and he kind of followed me. And I told him I was just looking at the clock, but he still decided to harass me. Eventually, I got the cop on him, and the same one that had arrested me at the payphone.
Yeah.
And he came in gym class. He made a truce agreement with me, a peace agreement. He said, just stay away from Diane. He said the cops were a little slow because they took a little time to get to him.
Yeah.
And what led me to finally do that is because, like, one time I was up at the bus stop, and I knew what kind of car he drove. It was a red AMC Pacer.
Okay.
And I knew what he looked like. I could see him in the window with Diane and his two friends, this girl Connie and this guy Don, who she was dating. It was a friend of hers since elementary. But he drove by me, and I thought, oh no, I'm dead now. This is outside. But he just came up to me, and he just kind of harassed me. I had a big paper list of funny stuff to do, so I could hand it to people, and they would say, yeah, do this one, do an imitation of an angry 500-pound guy. What's up, Innocent? That's my cat. Her name's Innocent.
Hi, Innocent.
Yeah, usually she's afraid of strangers. She goes and hides, but this time, some reason she decided to come down. What's up, Innocent?
She has innocent eyes.
She's 5. She was a stray, but somebody helped me trap her and got her to the APL and got her fixed.
Oh.
I was going to get another second cat after my last boy cat Brownie died, but because of finances, I'm going with one cat now. Now, where was I on
Smart
that?
move. You were finishing up where the boyfriend had came through in the Pacer. You made the truce agreement.
Yeah, truce agreement. He said, just stay away from Diane and everything will be all right. And I assured him that I always tried to stay at least 50 feet away. And the fact of the matter is, I probably would have stayed away anyway because I was afraid her dad wanted to kill me because he was so mad in that courtroom.
Yeah.
But anyway, they eventually ended up breaking up, and we became friends for a while.
You and the guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we played pool and bowled together. That was later on.
Did you ever talk about what had happened?
Not really. He asked me one time when we were out, we went to Domino's Pizza together, and he asked me, have you seen Diane around lately? I said, no, I haven't. He says she's kind of a weird blonde.
Yeah. So did you try reaching out in older age to Diane?
Well, at the time of her 10-year reunion in her class, I called up the woman in charge. Her name was Donna Babel. I can't think of her married name right now, but anyway, she informed me that Diane was living somewhere in Cleveland and had 2 kids. And it was only in very recent years I was able, because of internet technology and other things, I was able, and I had the alumni directory too, but there was no forwarding information on her. But I found out, Ancestry.com, that it's obvious that she got pregnant before she was married, but she did marry the same guy, and she had 2 kids who are now in their early 30s, but they don't live here in Cleveland. But anyway, she's been living in different places like Naperville, Illinois, and Bethesda, Maryland. And
so you just, did you ever reach out, or you just kind of track?
She doesn't. She's not on social media.
Okay.
The only way I could have contacted her was write her a snail mail letter, and her husband might get pissed off.
I see. So you just wanted to get whatever information you could.
Yeah.
Still kind of from the sidelines.
Yeah.
Do you dream of just one day?
Oh yeah, sometimes. I mean, if her husband passed away and she wanted to,
she might even just be down to cheat on him.
Yeah, well, you never know. I don't think she's the type who would do that, but then again, I don't know everything about her.
Do you still get the same feeling you got when you were a kid, thinking about it?
Yeah, I do. I've been playing it, downplaying it and keeping it quiet because I got so much flack on Facebook posting about her.
I love your Facebook posts.
I used to always think when I was in my year at St. Ed's, I used to think that if other guys saw Diane, they too would be Diane Rosson lover types. They might even start acting like me to try and get her attention, but that probably was just a fantasy.
But that never happened, right?
No.
Were any other guys singing Alvin and the Chipmunks or making crazy voices at her?
Not that I know of.
I can't believe she didn't go for it. It's not too late.
Yeah, she was one of those good girls. She was on student council. She was on the tennis team. And I think, according to one of the old yearbooks, which the library now has, she was on the basketball cheerleading squad.
Jeez. Did you feel like you just couldn't stand a chance?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how I felt too. I relate to you on that. Perhaps that's why I like some of your material so much. Yeah.
I felt like I didn't quite measure up. I was always hoping I would measure up, and I always thought maybe somehow, some way, I could get to that point, but it never happened.
You were close, though, with the bench press.
Right. I did work with her at Our Gang Lounge. It's this restaurant I worked at for 4 months. I got the job there first, and then one day in the kitchen, she just appeared out of the blue. I kind of took a few steps back because I was afraid her dad might still have it in for me.
Yeah.
She said, "It's all right," and I'm assuming she remembered, but I wasn't sure if she remembered the phone calls. But yeah, the boss let us get drunk one night, and she held up a glass of champagne to me and smiled. So maybe if I had apologized and tried to talk to her, maybe I would have been able to go with her. I don't know.
But at the time, you still didn't apologize or try to talk to her.
Yeah, I probably should have, but I don't know if she even remembered. And I figured if I jogged her memory, she would just hate me again. I wasn't all these confusing feelings, not knowing what to think.
Yeah, that's how I thought. I was just like, I had really strong emotions and I didn't understand how to contextualize them or how to act on them. And it caused a lot of trouble for me.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. And I love that you shared the story on Facebook. I love how open you are about it. And I love how polarizing it is to people. Some people get real uppity about it. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. When her 10 and 20 and 30 year reunion came around, I wanted to go to it, but I kind of chickened out.
Okay.
But when her 40 year reunion came, I decided I'm going to take chances. I was sort of inspired by this song about El Paso. It's a country song that I heard when I was
Marty Robbins.
Yeah.
Classic.
My love is stronger than my fear of death. So I went to her reunion, and I was in the distance. I thought I saw her ex-boyfriend. Well, he's married to somebody else now, and I had ran across him 2 years before because he was in a restaurant at one of my reunion activities where him and his wife frequented, but he didn't know that there was going to be, that was one of the places of reunion activity that night. And the only reason I even recognize him after all that time, now having a bald head and having that hair in his head before, is because I had seen him on Facebook.
Okay.
I contacted him, but he didn't respond. But anyway, he was real cool to me then. He even bought me a beer.
Yeah.
But then 2 years later, when I went to crash his and Diane's reunion, Diane wasn't there, as far as I know. At least he told me she wasn't there. But anyway, I went there later because it was supposed to go from like 7 to 10 or so, and I figured if I go later when it's toward the end, there'd be no problem. After a while, her ex-boyfriend spotted me and came over to me. He said, "Joe, you're not supposed to be here." Yeah, his wife was there and joining him. He looked, maybe it was just my imagination, but he looked like he was ready to lash out at me. His wife was like holding him. We talked a while, and after that, and his wife came along and said, "Is everything okay now?" And he said, "Yeah, everything's okay now." We talked a while. He told me that she won't even come into the state of Ohio anymore, all because of me. But she was back here for a few years. I didn't tell him I knew this, but she was back here for a few years living in Bay Village. She doesn't know that I know. I guess she decided to get a place over there. See, I kind of put 2 and 2 together. Her dad was still alive, and about a year after he passed away, she moved to, I found out, Borneo, Texas.
Okay.
But anyway, I think she was back here because he was old. He died 5 days after his 91st birthday.
Made it a long time.
Yeah, and he lived longer even than my mom, who made 88 and a half. But anyway, I believe that she was back here to tend to his needs because he was there alone. He didn't have his wife for many years, and he was probably, his health was failing him because he was old, and maybe she was there to bring him over to their house in Bay Village. I guess she figured if she stayed in the Bay Village, she was far enough away hiding out, but I still found out. I didn't contact her or anything. One time I drove on a weekday when most people are at work on 9 to 5 jobs. I drove past her house just to prove that I could get away with driving past her house to see what it looked like in person. But I didn't do anything. After I passed her house, I just went around the corner and went back home. But anyway, I believe she was back to take care of her dad's needs and see to it that he got a proper funeral and burial. And there was no obituary online for him. And I can't help wonder if maybe it was because of me. Wanted to keep the wake and funeral private. But anyway, yeah, her ex-boyfriend said that the best way I could apologize is because I said that I never even got to apologize to her. He said the best way to speak yet, so the best way I could apologize is to just leave her alone and to not be contacting her old friends to find out about her. Because I did contact some of her friends.
And were they like, "Dude, stop"?
Well, actually, let's see. I only was able really to get hold of one of her female friends, this girl Connie, and she didn't actually say stop, but I was able to give information to let her know that I knew things about Diane and knew about her, and I was asking. There was this instance when I was 13 where I was staring at her house. I was sitting on my bicycle on the public sidewalk staring at her house, and her dad came out, and I could have sworn he said, "Who are you looking for, honey?" He might have said Sonny, but I could have sworn he said honey. And then there was this guy in my school I told it about who lived further down the street, but in a different elementary school district. And he said that there was a guy in that street that called everybody honey. So, years later, I'm asking Connie if Mr. Rosson called everybody honey, but she said, no, he was not in the habit. Innocent, come here. He was not in the habit of calling everybody honey. So I don't know.
If you could talk to Diane Rosson now, what would you say?
I'd apologize for the phone calls. I would tell her the truth about how I had a big crush on her, and I was afraid of her rejection.
And you never got to say that.
No, I didn't. I probably could have at our gang lounge, but I couldn't bring myself to do it.
That was a long time ago at the lounge.
Yeah, that was. But at that time, I was 25, and she had just turned 22. For a long time there, I didn't know when her birthday was, but now I know she was born December 7th, 1964.
Do you think?
Yeah,
that was unhinged. Do you think she was ever able to put that together? To understand, hey, this guy just has a funny way of showing that he likes me.
I don't know if she ever thought that or not.
Do you think it's still possible?
Maybe, possibly. She might have figured it out when I was at our gang on, and maybe she was waiting for me to talk to her. Although she started after I was there, and she left and quit before I did. I don't know if that means anything.
You never thought of writing her like a snail mail letter, explaining it all?
I did. Well, see, when you send a snail mail letter, you got to give out an address.
Yeah.
And I checked it out with the post office. If you use a return address that's false,
yeah,
you can get in trouble for it. And it's expensive to rent P.O. boxes now.
Yeah, well, you don't want her to know your address?
Right, yeah, because I don't want her, if her husband might by chance be a hothead.
That's what you're worried about?
Yeah. Or they go and file a complaint, a no contact order.
Okay.
It's not that hard to get a no contact order.
I bet it's not.
Yeah, no contact, especially for a lady, they tend to take sides with the women. I mean, they don't even. I've gotten some no contact orders in my lifetime, 3 of them. And it basically says that no attempt was made to prove the allegations, but to let you know that the party felt sufficiently aroused to come and complain, and you're advised. And then they advise you to cease all contact by, snail mail, email, phone, in person, or through another person even. And so, and if you persist, there's possibility of prosecutions, or so the no contact order says.
I see. So that's great. You have experience with it, with navigating it.
Right. I mean, if I had a friend with a P.O. box, I might consider using his P.O. box.
Maybe we could make that happen.
Maybe.
Let's go back to Satanicon. When did you start doing Satanicon? I appreciate the Diane Rosson.
I formed it with my... well, we're not friends anymore, but John Scooter Lincoln, he gave me some guitar lessons, and then eventually we started the band together. We started jamming in like late 98 going into 99, and then we eventually did a Halloween party gig in 99, like a day or two before Halloween in 99 at this guy Randy Roscoe's house, a fellow Satanist at the time. And see, after the breakup with this girlfriend I had named Kay, I decided I better push myself harder to learn the guitar better. Then I can get in a band, I can start a band with John, and I can get chicks anywhere, anytime. So I thought.
So you thought.
Yeah.
But you did get some chicks.
Yeah.
Good. So this Diane Rosson thing, it wasn't the end of the world, and it wasn't the end of your life.
No, I
chicks
guess
after that.
Right.
Were you excited when you were finally able to get with chicks after being so horny in kindergarten?
Yeah.
I was too.
Yeah. Sometimes I had to settle for the ones that weren't as pretty, but
yeah,
I did it
me
anyway.
too.
I did it partly because the Christians say it's a sin to have sex without marriage, and I just wanted to do it to have sex without marriage, and
just to sin. You weren't even enjoying it.
Yeah, sometimes, right? Because they weren't that pretty.
Definitely. What came first, being into black metal or getting into Satanism?
I would say getting into black metal, because I was hearing bands like Venom and Exodus and stuff when I was 23. I would say that the transition period from calling myself a Christian to calling myself a Satanist was like a 3 to 4 year period.
Okay. What attracted you to it?
To black metal?
To Satanism.
Well,
to change from Christianity to Satanism, and now you've changed back?
Well, one thing, when I was 21, I hadn't been to church in a while. I was on break from community college, and I figured maybe I better go back to church. Maybe I can pray to God. Maybe he'll give me more brain power so I can do my schoolwork and still make it to church every Sunday.
And more muscles to get checked.
Yeah. And I went there on a Christmas day, and this priest, instead of having a positive celebration but singing Christmas carols, right on Christmas Day, he was ranting and raving about pornography coming into Christian homes and people saying, I'm not going to listen to this priest or that pastor. I'm going to do what I want because this is my life. And he yelled out, it is not your life. It was given to you freely by Jesus Christ. Well, I didn't want to sit there and hear that kind of stuff. I had a mom who was anti-pornography, and I had enough of that with her, so I didn't want to hear some more of it there. So I got up and I walked out.
Because you wanted a goon.
Yeah.
You wanted to keep looking at porn.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have access. I lived with my parents, and my mom would not allow cable or the Playboy channel.
Okay.
But I had a friend from work that I got to see some of the Playboy channel when I was able to go over there.
And were you like, hell yeah?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
And they were cool with me playing my rock or my metal, basically, as long as I didn't blast it and disturb them.
So not too bad, not too strict. So after that, you said, this is oppressive. I want a goon.
Yeah, I started, well, after that, I decided maybe I'll check out other churches, only to find out that some of them were more strict on the sex before marriage thing.
And you were like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I did find this group called the Unitarian Universalists, which is essentially humanist and there you can go and it's okay to be atheist, agnostic, or whatever. But I didn't really have too much luck there with their, really nice looking women.
At the church, you thought I should try to pick up women at the church?
I was trying to pick up women at church.
And did you pick up a couple?
No.
Never.
No, I made friends with one at the Unitarian church, and she took me in when my parents threw me out when I had a temporary falling out with them, but she was not my girlfriend. She had a boyfriend. The boyfriend didn't really like me being there, but he was kind of a weak nerd, and he really didn't do anything about it.
I like how you worded that.
Yeah.
So over a couple of years, you're into metal and you're into bands and you start to get into Satanism.
Yeah, when I started, I was 22 years old. I was working at Brown Derby, and there was a metalhead there that said, you should listen to college radio. There's some real heavy metal on there. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure what he meant, but by the way he put it, it made me very curious. So I started turning to college radio and listening, and I started just recording stuff off the radio. And I didn't know where to get stuff like that. It wasn't until, I went in the Navy for a while, but it didn't work out, and they sent me home with entry level separation. I was 23 going on 24. But anyway, when I came back home, I got this job at a different Brown Derby than I worked at before, and it was there that somebody told me about Shattered Records. There was this guy that owned a record store called Shattered Records, and he sold a lot of underground satanic metal that you couldn't find most anywhere else. Chris's Warp sold some too, but not like he did. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he was kind of expensive. I mean, he had tapes and vinyl, and when CDs started coming out, he started having CDs. I remember CDs were so expensive, like $30 a pop.
Wow, I can't imagine.
I think, if I remember right.
So you got more into that, and then did you feel like there was more freedom attached to that ideology with Satanism? More
or less, yeah. It was after hearing all this music and going to these churches that basically were acting like, oh yeah, if you're not willing to give up your secular rock and metal music, you're not a real Christian. I said, okay, fine, then I'm not a real Christian. And I eventually started to wonder if there was a thing called the Satanic Bible. I was looking in this book called the Encyclopedia of American Religions. And I don't know which came first, finding the listing for the Church of Satan in there, or thumbing through the yellow pages of out-of-town, out-of-state phone books at the library. Because back then, this was before, the internet came along.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was phone books from out of town and out of state, and I went there, and to my amazement, I saw a listing in San Francisco, churches, satanic. Yeah, before I got the Satanic Bible, I wasn't really sure what it was all about, but I figured after a while my mindset was, I'm willing to take chances. I don't care if I go to hell. I don't care if a bolt of lightning strikes me. I don't care if I get in with a group of criminals. I just want what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And I want money, power, women. And now when I got the Satanic Bible, it was not quite what I expected. I found out later, the Church of Satan was actually very law-abiding, and one thing they didn't agree with me on at the time, I was into young girls and reliving my teen years, and going with teens and pretending I was a teen, and they definitely didn't agree with that.
What, and how did that, was there a confrontation about that, or how did they even find out about that?
Because I told them, by the time I was 29, I was starting a group I was trying to start a group of my own called the Church of Satanic Youthfulness. And they read my literature, and they said that they interpreted it as pedophilia, and said that pedophilia was a very dangerous thing and highly illegal in the United States.
And they said, we don't want anything to do with that.
Well, more or less. See, I had to wait till I got out on my own to join the Church of Satan.
Okay.
That was when I was 28.
Okay.
Because I had read a synopsis of the Church of Satan, and they just seemed like to be a law-abiding organization that was into status, like the year and make of the members' cars. I told my dad about that, but he was a little leery. He said there could be a dot among them. So basically, I couldn't join while I was living at home with my parents. I had to wait till I had my own place to join, and I did.
I see.
And I thought that they had local chapters all over the place, and I would be going to services, rituals, etc., at wherever that chapter was.
And it wasn't like that.
No, the Church of Satan, they like your money. Anybody can get on I don't know what they charge now. I think it's gone up, but back then in '89 when I joined, it was $100 for the so-called lifetime membership. All it really does is get you on a paper list, and then they send you some papers in the mail that only people who send in $100 get, and that's all you get. If you want further interaction or involvement, you have to prove yourself worthy. You have to have some kind of significant achievement.
I see.
And they have no sympathy or compassion for the poor, the indigent, the people like me who never held jobs very well. They want the strong. They want the common. They are very Darwinistic.
Okay.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
You won't see them having communion meals for the poor, having a food pantry to give out meals for the poor. I couldn't even imagine them giving money to third world countries to even help or donating to Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital.
Yeah. What did you say? Did you feel like your church idea was intended on pedophilia?
No, I didn't consider it pedophilia, because to me, pedophilia was somebody who likes little kids who haven't even reached puberty at the time.
Yeah, and you were saying,
I mean, nowadays I stick with legal adult age.
Of course.
In fact, I even try to stay with 21 and over, because if they're 21 and over, you can buy them alcohol and not worry about getting in trouble.
Yeah. But you were just saying...
I was just trying to have the love life I didn't have as a teenager. I was trying to go back and be a teen again and have the world pretend I was a teen.
Yeah. Do you... I feel like you have insight into your previous experiences. Have you you've had some time to think it over?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like you have like some objectivity and some greater perspective.
Right. Yeah, I've gotten a little more over it than I was, say, in my 30s of the people who rejected me or showed hatred for me in high school.
Yeah. What did you do to do that?
I guess I just got older and calmed down, I guess.
Calmed down?
Yeah, I guess.
So going forward, you had, now you were involved with the Church of Satan, but you were never heavily involved. You never felt welcomed or accepted.
I did not fully, no. I mean, I was on their list, but like I said, they like your money. And a homeless man off the street, if he comes up with an extra $100 and has an address to receive mail, he could join.
Sure. But that's all they care about, but they weren't enthusiastic about being involved with you, or you didn't feel any sense of community from them.
Yeah, I can tell you who. Now they say they don't expect geniuses. I read it in their literature, but they want somebody with significant achievement. I mean, if you're a scientist who breaks the barrier of the speed of light and invents a spaceship that can go many times the speed of light to a planet to explore other worlds, somebody like that they would take, or somebody who makes a great scientific discovery.
Yeah.
But that would be somebody that they obviously would take. Ray was a truck driver, but he had stability, and they took him in. But he ended up breaking the law, killing his girlfriend, turning a gun on himself in a drunken rage. But as far as I know, he was just one out of the bunch, because the Church of Satan, at least, not that I want to go back to them, not that I'm defending them, but they are law-abiding. They advise their members to abide by all the legal laws of the land.
Yeah. I was going to ask about Ray. That's where I was going with the.
Yeah, he was just one out of the bunch. What he did does not reflect the entire Church of Satan community.
No, I don't think that at all, and I don't think anyone that would listen to this would feel that way at all.
Right.
Were you surprised by that when that happened?
Yes, I was.
Tell the story again. What happened?
I knew he had guns. Well, I found out about it after it happened the next day.
Okay. You were surprised you didn't have this caught you totally by surprise?
Because it was only 6 hours before that. I talked to him online. He put a post up on the line. It was like his last post. He was in the store. He put on a wig to see what he looked like with long hair and said he was going to grow it out. And in fact, only a few days before that, him and Angela, his girlfriend, they ended up killing, were over here right in this living room visiting me.
And you had been playing with him.
But I couldn't go with him to the show because I was banned from the Foundry. The show was at the Foundry. Okay. But yeah, he was my bass player in my band.
So you had played with him for the whole time? Was he in the band the whole time?
Well, from the time he joined, sometime in 2011, right after I.
Oh, okay. So he had been playing with you for about 5 years.
Yeah. John eventually rejoined the band because he found out we were going to do a gig, and so he joined up with us because we had talked to Kanye, and Kanye got us a gig at the what's now No Class. But
now that's Class. Yeah, I remember the gig.
Yeah. And so John joined in plenty of time to rehearse with us. And it was just the three of us. I did some of the vocals. I know I did the vocal. I think Ray and John, one of them may have done some backup vocals, maybe.
And so were you active with the band from?
Oh yeah, I was a constant in the band.
I know it's your band, but had you for those. That was what, 16 years?
Something like that.
Almost 20 years.
Started in 1999.
Were you active that whole time?
You mean in the band?
Yeah, in Satanicon.
Well, the band was sometimes on again, off again.
That's what I thought.
But basically, after Ray died, I only jammed with one person, this guy, Ernie.
Okay.
Yeah, but we never ended up playing out together or making any public releases together, really. Okay. I think he may have put some kind of recording of a song or two of us playing together online somewhere, maybe, but we never actually made like an album or a demo per se.
And tell the Ray story again for anyone who's never heard it.
Well, I found out one Sunday afternoon, I came home from a failed church panhandling attempt, trying to ask for a handout. I still identified as a Satanist, and this is 2016, last day of February. I came home, and there was a call from John. He was a mutual friend of Ray and I, and had been in the band with us. And there was a message on the machine from John saying, "Call when you get home, Joe. It's very important." But John didn't usually tell me call. It was very important. So I called him, and he told me that Ray had killed his girlfriend and a gun on himself, and I could hardly believe it. I said, you serious? You got to be kidding me. He told me, look online, Google his name, and you'll see. And I did. And sure enough, there was a news article from the Sandusky Register paper, because he lived in Sandusky, that had happened. And eventually I heard a recording of his girlfriend, Angela. It's still online, of her calling up the police, saying where she was at, and the boyfriend was coming, slammed her against the wall and was coming at her again. And so anyway, it happened one night where I was unaware of it until the next day in the afternoon. And then about 24 hours after it happened, I was here at home. I was trying to go to sleep in my bedroom. I'm 99.5% sure I was wide awake. A creepy entity with a sparkling essence and eyes with no pupils appeared in my bedroom.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about this.
I was a little bit afraid, and right after that, see, I had some crosses laying around, and I figured just in case I decided to go Christian, I kept them in a drawer. I pulled them out, and I put them in my room as amulets of protection. I hadn't decided, okay, I'm going to go Christian now, or I'm going to ask Jesus to be my savior. But I kept the satanic altar up in the room diagonally across from my bedroom. And I still did rituals. See, Ray was getting me to go in the ritual chamber. Innocent. Yeah, and he was getting me to go in there and thank Satan for all the good things in my life and burn incense to him. He said, get good incense, because if you're cheap with Satan, Satan will be cheap with you. But after this happened, I even wondered if Satan got mad at Ray because he didn't think he was strong enough. He didn't think I was strong enough, and he didn't want either one of us. So he made that happen.
Wow.
It's just a crazy thought. It might be reality. It might not be reality.
So you saw this entity appear in your room?
Yeah, it lingered for a few seconds and then disappeared.
And how did you perceive that? Did you think it was Ray, or?
I thought of the possibility it might have been Ray, but I wasn't sure. Ray trying to say goodbye.
Okay.
There's one woman, Sabrina, who's more of a spiritual Satanist who lived with me for 3 days. She thinks it was Ray trying to say goodbye. She even claims that he appeared to her too.
Okay.
There was no words spoken or anything. The entity couldn't talk, apparently.
Wow.
It wasn't anywhere too close to me. It was about like 10 feet away, 8 feet away, something like that.
Still would have been spooky. Had you seen anything like that before? And what you
not with my bare naked eyes and like that? No.
Was that commonplace for you and Ray to be doing rituals or things like that?
I did one ritual with him, but just one.
Okay. And did you do anything like that before when you were involved with Satanism, or was it more?
Most of my rituals were alone by myself, but I had a group of teenagers. I was the only legal adult in the group, and we did a ritual a time or two, a couple of different rituals.
Were you able to get any results from them?
No, when the teenagers were in my group, I was trying to get them. It was supposed to be like a satanic movement to help teenagers get more freedom. Mm-hmm. But it never really got off the ground. I was hoping I could make big bucks on it too. Yeah. But it never panned out that way. And it was, in fact, it drove more people away than it did anything else. And I got flack for it.
Definitely.
Yeah. I thought teenager girls would think I was cool for it, but I found out how wrong I was. My perception was off, I guess.
Yeah. So with any of the rituals or anything like that before, were you able to make any results from any of the
I would probably have to say no.
So you went for a while, though. You really gave it a shot. You were like,
I mean, I wasn't doing rituals too regularly. It was just kind of a here and there over the years.
Okay.
Whenever, when I had a crush on a particular woman, I'm not talking about Diane, but others that I tried to do a ritual to make them desire me, but it didn't work.
What do you think the problem was?
I don't know. They just don't work. Even the new head of the Church of Satan, not LaVey, because he kind of retired and it was kind of given over to Peter Gilmore. Okay. He said, we don't do any rituals anymore. They're ineffective.
So when did you start to move away from that and into what's your religious denomination now?
I identify as a Christian now, but I'm not like a real hardcore Bible thumper or anything. In fact, sometimes I even question it, and sometimes even now what happened was after my boy cat Magus died, see, he came into my life that same year that Ray killed his girlfriend and I got on himself. Okay. It might have even been that same afternoon that I was informed. It could have been right before that. It could have been after that. It could have been a week later. I'm not sure.
But right around this time.
Yeah. And I know that approximately 4 months later, in late June of 2016, that same year, Magus was moved in with me. and he was with me for 4 2/3 years. He wasn't fixed at the time, and it was hard to get myself to want to fix him because I didn't want to take away his manhood, but I was informed by somebody who was a Satanist. This female Satanist said to me, he'll be more comfortable. And I was also told by my friend Aaron, who's a cat lover, that less chance of urinary infections and he'll live longer. So I got him fixed, and he was with me for about 4 2/3 years. He came to me when he was little more than a kitten. The vet's office, I don't know how they do it, but they come up with computer-generated birth dates.
Okay.
I guess it's by analyzing the teeth and other things, maybe kind of like they figure out how old the tree is by the rings.
Forensics.
Yeah. So anyway, he supposedly was born August 8th, 2015. He had to be euthanized. He had a heart tumor. One day in February of 2021, during the pandemic, I noticed that his breathing didn't look quite right. And I sent a video to my friend Erin, and she helped me get an emergency appointment with him. But I knew something was wrong for sure when I went to take him his morning wet food, because I always feed my cats. Well, I only have one now, but any cats I've had since I had them, I give them one. They have unlimited supply of dry food, and then morning wet food and evening wet food. And I went to bring him his morning wet food, and he just darted under the bed. I thought he just had some kind of cat flu. And I said, come over here. Anyway, I got him in, and they said he was a very sick kitty. I figured I'll just have to spend some money to get him well. But, and I had to give permission for them to go ahead with a couple different operations. At first they said it was blood in his lungs, and then, well, they said water in his lungs. Then they said it was blood in his lungs. But they told me it was incurable, and they recommended euthanasia. They told me I could take him to a radiology specialist and spend thousands of dollars and maybe still not cure him, which I really couldn't afford.
Yeah.
So I had him euthanized. He was just past 5.5 years old when he was euthanized. It was a very sad day in my life because up to then I never had anybody real close to me, human or pet, that didn't live to a ripe old age. I mean, okay. I had some friends, acquaintances that I knew from metal and other stuff that didn't get to live to a ripe old age, but the relationship wasn't that close to bring me deep sorrow like it did with Magus.
Wow, rest in peace to Magus.
Yeah, and Brownie, I got him by putting food out on the porch. A friend of mine said when the food is no longer fresh, throw it out. But after a while, I figured, why do that when there's desperate animals outside who will gladly eat it? Mm-hmm. So that's how I got Brownie. He started coming around. The Magus trusted me pretty quick. Mm-hmm. He was kind of a tough cat, kind of aggressive. But Brownie was a little more mild-tempered, and he took anywhere from 1 year and 2 months to 1 year and 4 months to trust me to finally move in. But he finally moved in October of 2017, about 1 year and 4 months after Magus had moved in, and he was with me for. I said, "Come here." Anyway, he moved in mid-October 2017, and when Magus died, people were saying, trying to encourage me to go get another cat. And I told them I already got another cat. They said, somebody said, your other baby needs you, so stay strong. And I was, and then I got some lady who, out of the kindness of her heart, who only needed money to cover the expenses, but not trying to make a profit. She helped me trap her. Okay. She didn't come in on her own. But so she was now my new second cat to Brownie, because Brownie had the seniority. But Brownie, he was with me for 3 years. But then on the same month, 3 years later, he had to be euthanized on a different day, though. February 8th, he was euthanized. It was for widespread cancer, but he was 11. He was about twice as old as Magus.
Okay.
But at the time, before Magus died, before I even knew he was going to be euthanized, I found this, I was listening to cool rockabilly songs that I had missed because they didn't get airplay, at least when I was a teenager, and I was ripping them to cassette. Are we still recording?
Yeah, you're fine.
All right. Well, anyway, I was ripping them to cassette, and then I'm putting them to CD. I have a unit that makes CDR copies from vinyl or tapes. So I was making homemade compilations.
Mhm.
And in the process, I found the song Chapel Bells Ringing by Gene Summers. And I figured, well, we all have, it was a song that was written in 1962 about some teenager on their way to a church picnic whose car stalled right on the tracks right as a train was coming. And one lone survivor made it out. The rest froze up and they all died. And so the song was written for them. But little did I know when I ripped the song to cassette and then put it as a CDR that I was going to need it soon. But I used it to help me cry my eyes out over Magus after he died, changing the words to fit a cat.
Wow. Okay.
And not only that, I found out later that that same artist who sang that song, he died on the exact same day, year and all, as Magus was euthanized.
Really?
Yes.
So that was a synchronicity for you.
Yeah. I figured it was a sign. I figured maybe God, the Creator, was trying to tell me something. So I said, Jesus, if you are one and the same, if you are what all the Christians say, you are one and the same with God, and you are the Savior and can be anyone's Lord and Savior, please come into my life and be my personal Lord and Savior. But like I didn't all suddenly become, this big gung-ho Bible thumper and all. In fact, there was COVID, so I couldn't really visit churches in person, but I did attend some more liberal wing ones, and for comfort in my bereavement.
Did you feel effectiveness when you called out to Jesus?
Well, yeah. I mean, I knew that the Church of Satan didn't accept me because I'm not elite. I'm far from elite. I never held jobs too good. I've been on Social Security for mood disorders, and I realized after a while that I really had no business calling myself a Satanist.
And then did you feel more welcomed in Christian community?
Not really, because I was listening to Christian radio, and I was trying to align myself with it, but there were so many things I just couldn't agree with, especially on the sexual thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I said to myself, I don't have a girlfriend to have sex with right now, but I would go for it if the chance came along. And I know that Christians would say, well, then you're not a real Christian.
Yeah. That's pretty elitist, and that's pretty confusing.
Yeah. I mean, I could not, I even now I find it hard to agree with everything they preach, and I sometimes still get the idea in my head, maybe it's man-made. Other times I think, what if there's no afterlife at all, and when we die, we just go into an eternal void of nothingness with no consciousness. And sometimes I freak out, I have panic attacks.
Thinking about death?
Yes.
Thinking about
if there's nothing after death, because my faith is probably not as strong as some of the others.
You don't like that idea of nothingness?
Right. I mean, it certainly would be better than burning in hell for all eternity. I mean,
yeah, I agree with that.
That would be the only good thing. If there was nothingness, at least our pain and suffering would be over. Whether it's loneliness or physical pain of some kind or alcohol addiction or whatever.
Did you find it confusing? Why?
But I hope there's an afterlife and that I'll make it to a better place when I die and see my cats again.
Yeah. I hope you see that too.
Thanks.
Did you find it confusing that
well, see,
the church would be so against sexuality? But
I knew that.
Why would I be? Why am I so horny?
From the time I was a teenager, from the time I was 16 or 17 when I went to the Catholic school. So no, it didn't come as a surprise to me. Many times when I was in between jobs or I was underemployed or on unemployment benefits, I would sometimes go to churches to ask for help, and some of the more stricter ones, they would have me sit through service and Bible study in return to get something. And that's how I learned what they thought. I learned all their commonly quoted Bible scriptures and everything.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know the whole Bible, but I've tried to read some of it, and I find it difficult to believe that all that stuff in Noah's Ark could have happened, because how did they deal with all that dung, and how did they, it seems unreal that Noah could have just got all those animals, one male, one female of all the elephants, and he could just command them to come in. I mean, they don't understand the English language.
Kind of ridiculous sounding.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that a sick joke? Why would God make you so horny if you weren't supposed to fuck?
Yeah, I know. That's a good
Do you
point.
ever wonder that?
Yeah.
Do you have an answer for it?
Not really. I would have to ask different pastors or Christians who have been at it longer what they would say.
Have you ever asked them that?
I don't think I really did, but
What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, I don't know.
If you're not supposed to do it. It's like a joke. It's like a cruel joke or something.
Yeah, I know. It does seem like a cruel joke sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So you had some recent incidents where you went to a church, but then they told you not to come back.
Yeah, I went. There was this church in Lakewood called King's Church. They don't have their own building, but they rent space in Lakewood Civic Auditorium. They have 2 services. Last I checked, 9 and 11 every Sunday. And I took a class, got an application. I was hesitant at first because I never joined a evangelical or born again style church before. I had registered in a Catholic parish, which was more to get financial assistance because all you have to do is go there and register.
Okay.
And I had membership in the Unitarian Universalist Church way back when I was like 28. But no, I never joined an evangelical church. So I was hesitant, but I took on the application and then I returned it the following week. And eventually I found out about Jeffrey Dahmer getting his immersion baptism. And I figured, well, why should he get to go to heaven? Because he worked with a pastor that was so sure he was going to heaven now, even though he killed 17 people.
Okay.
Because according to the Christian belief, or at least evangelicals, they say no matter how terrible a sin you committed, and no matter how many people out in the world won't forgive you, God will forgive you and let you into heaven if you're truly sorry for what you did. I'm not trying to be preachy or anything or push anything. I'm just saying.
No, go off.
Right, this is what they say.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like I'm pushy or preachy because I know when I was into Satanism and I was putting flyers around and somebody caught me, they said I was trying to push things. I was accused of being pushy. When I worked at our gang lounge before Diane worked there, I was making upside down crosses at some of the waitresses, and this cook got mad at me and told me, leave them alone. Yeah, don't push your religion, so I don't want to.
No, I asked you just because I'm interested in your story.
Well,
I'll leave that for anyone listening to interpret it however they want.
I will too. But anyway, all I knew is, after Magus died, I was very emotional. I found myself repenting for all the sins, for any time I let people down and all that. I mean, surely, there are people that let me down or, and all, but I figured, it doesn't matter. All I could think about was Magus passing away. So for the time being, I forgot about all else. And so it took me 2 years and 8 months to finally go and join Evangelical Church. It was King's Church. I mean, I don't want to sound like I was just going there for social reasons or to find a girlfriend, because I really do want to make it to heaven. But I had dropped into King's Church one other time a year before, just attended one service. One thing I liked about it is that unlike other evangelical churches or a lot of others, when you go up to pray, they only have somebody of the same sex come and lay their hand on you and all that. Well, here, a young woman of legal adult age came and laid her hands on me, and there was a lot of young, cute women. Well, they're in their 20s and 30s. I found out later that, which is unusual nowadays, because I've read online that most of the people, 20s, 30s, teens, when asked what their religious affiliation is, they're the nuns. That's NONES, no religious affiliation.
Yeah.
So it was very unusual that this church had so many 20 and 30 somethings in it. But more than once, the 2 pastors had suggested that I try another church where there's more people my own age, because I was complaining about lack of friends, lack of companionship. I have a few friends, but they're all either sick or whatever.
I see. And they said, why don't you go over there to try to find people?
Another church where there's more people your own age and in the same stage of life as you.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want to accept that I was in that stage of life.
I see.
I know it's probably not going to happen, and I should just fully accept it. But I always thought that someday I would be married and have kids. I would settle into a more normal life. I mean, yes, I had probably more problems than most, making friends, keeping friends, growing up in elementary, junior high. Not that I didn't have friends. I did.
Yeah.
I played with the neighborhood kids. I had I made best friends with the future class valedictorian, and we were friends from 5th grade to 8th grade. But in general, people thought I was weird, strange, odd.
And part of why I wanted to talk to you is I like that to some extent you embrace that and you share that.
In a way, yeah. I guess maybe it's just because I'm used to it. I mean, I don't even know what it's like to be a regular, typical average American male who just watches football and drinks beer. You know the stereotype.
Yeah, I really don't either. So I relate to that. And I do think, for how many people get mad or for how many people feel strongly about it one way or the other, that's what I really like about you. That's what I really like to see when I see your Facebook posts. Right. Or
sometimes I wish I wasn't so different or odd or strange with compulsions to want to do, funny things even now.
Yeah.
Which I sometimes do in my own, kitchen alone.
What, sing a song or make a prank call? What's your go-to?
There was this song on the radio that I've heard since a teenager, called Rockin' Pneumonia and the Boogie Woogie Flu.
Yeah.
And it goes, old man rhythms got a hold of me too. I got the Rockin' Pneumonia and the Boogie Woogie Flu. But when I first heard it, and back then you couldn't look up the lyrics because there was no internet, and I didn't have his album. I just heard a song on the radio. I thought he was saying young man Ribby's got a whole fuggy flu. And so sometimes I just go into my kitchen alone. I just go, young man Ribby's got a whole fuggy flu. And I daydream about telling people that the whole world should be that way and they should do that. And it would be pretty funny if they did it at a football game in intermission.
Old man's granny.
Old man Ribby's, young man Ribby's got a whole fuggy flu. Or I imagine being back in high school and people going down the hall singing that, and then all these big jock football players go with their deep voices, oh, foggy.
What about Leo in the Johnnies?
Oh, yeah, deedle in your Johnnies.
I fucking love that one.
That with the little O, that's supposed to be skinny people, because even though I was skinny when I was like 13, 14, I still made fun of other people who were skinny.
Okay.
There was this one girl who was Catholic and was short and skinny. She became kind of fat later, but
okay.
She was skinny, and I called her the Oomini. And I don't know how I came up with that, but because her hair was zoomed up in the air, and I dropped the Z, and then she's Minnie, like skinny Minnie.
Yeah.
So that's probably how I came up with Oomini.
With the Oomini. The Oomini.
Yeah, I go, Oomini, Oomini, Oobi, Oomi, Oomini. I got sent down to the office from study hall for sitting there one day making oominis in study hall. I had my finger in my mouth to show the anger, and I was going like this. And one of the study hall teacher monitors sent me down to the office, and the assistant principal saw me, called me in, and asked me and I told him what I was sent down for. He said, "What does the finger in the mouth mean?" And I told him, and even I was also having. There's also this other term, mina, which means skinny Jew, even though I have some Jewish descendancy. There was this other kid who was skinnier than me who was Jewish. And so to make myself feel better, because I was insecure about myself at the time, I made fun of him. I would say, if you think I'm skinny, look at Weston. I used to even tease him and pick on him. He even asked me, why do you always pick on me? I told him, because you have no sense of humor. He says, well, I have a sense of humor. He reached out, untied my shoe. This was back in 5th grade.
Yeah.
But I one time said to him, your arms are skinny. He looked at me with an annoyed look, and he said, your brain is skinny.
Whoa, he got you there.
I guess.
So back to this church said, hey, Joe, go to a different one. Stop coming here.
Well, they didn't really say
King's
it that
Church.
way, but eventually they asked me not to come back. The last straw came because I went up asking for prayer for this chat room sex talk addiction. There's a chat room I go in where you can only talk to one person at a time. And in the process of asking for prayer, trying to describe what I needed prayer for, I used the phrase sexual fetishes.
Yeah.
And this lady who kind of leads certain things, helps out. She came over with this disgusted look on her face saying that I couldn't use that term in church. It was inappropriate in church. It crossed the line. I said, well, tell me how to reword it better, and I'll reword it. How about sexual addiction? She said, no, you can't even use that. They finally ended up praying for me, but I could tell they were like half enthused.
Yeah. Well, what the hell are you supposed to do? Isn't that what church is supposed to be for?
Yeah, I know. And I told her that once I get started, I can't stop. Kind of like in alcohol. Once you start drinking, you can't stop drinking.
You're talking once you start jerking it?
Well, not so much about that, but talking in the chat room and how I get mad at the women when they criticize me for what I, say. And
yeah.
So anyway, I went and told the senior pastor afterward, and he said he would talk to the woman, Casey. And when I got home, I sent an email to the associate pastor. And later on in the week, he ended up calling me on the phone. Now, he had sent me an email that I missed, asking me to refrain from talking to the women in the church, saying I was making the women uncomfortable. And I don't know what it could have been, because as far as I can recall, I kept it clean.
Yeah,
I know that you can't, or you're not supposed to talk to a woman in church the same way you would talk to a woman in a bar or a club.
Yeah.
Although there were times in the past when I wanted to go into a church and turn it into a bar.
Of course.
Yeah, because in a real bar, there's dangers. People are drunk. Some guys are assholes. They lose their temper. They want to fight at the drop of a hat.
Mm-hmm. And
I figured a church was a safer place too. I mean, if there was a bar with a bunch of people that said, "Come on, Joe, we'll accept you. We'll be your friend. Everything will be cool," or they maybe even let me be the stud for the night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like so many times when I went to these metal shows, it's like, God damn, let me be the stud for just one night. Have some chicks come over, talk to me, and treat me like I'm the greatest thing just for one night. I mean, but anyway, I got a call from the pastor, and he had asked me to refrain from talking to the women. Even if I had seen that email, I would have ignored it anyway, because I don't like being told not to talk to women.
Yeah.
I think what the problem was is I'm old enough to be their dad, or in some cases maybe their grandfather, and they were freaking out just about that, and they didn't want to come out and say it or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what went through their mind. I wouldn't be able to read their minds if I was sitting right in front of them.
Yeah.
But I think that he said, go where there's more people in the same stage of life as you. And I visited other churches, but I always end up disappointed because there's little, if any, single women in the church, and any good-looking single women. It didn't used to be that way, I know.
Mm-hmm. So that's where you're in between now.
Kind of, yeah.
That's what. As we're wrapping up, what's next for you?
I don't know. I really couldn't say. It's a good question.
How do you look back on? I
know that the metal shows, I'm not really that popular. I don't have the best reputation there. They think I'm a pedophile, which I'm not. They remember my publication of Rejuvenation, my Church of Satanic Youthfulness, or Order of Dionysus of Asios, and I guess they just don't trust me. They wouldn't, if they have teenage daughters, they wouldn't trust me over their house for dinner or to drink a beer or whatever.
At a metal show.
Right, yeah, I mean, at a metal show, I can go pretty much as long as that Trevor isn't there, who doesn't like me. I mean,
Trevor, who's Trevor?
That bouncer at the Foundry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but anyway, I've gone to no class shows since Magus's death, and my asking Jesus to be my savior. But I really don't have too much luck there on a social level. I mean, some people will come over, greet me, and say hi and all that. But all in all, not really treated as an important person.
Yeah.
I thought, when I did Satanicon, all those songs, that was supposed to be my contribution to the metal world.
And did you feel like you made a contribution?
I'd like to think I did, but it seems like nobody... I don't think my albums are put up from beginning to end all the way through.
The Satanicon ones?
Different songs are up there. But,
okay.
But yeah, I mean, it seems like nobody wants to jump in and help me out on that. I'm not sure I have I mean, maybe I could just put my phone up to the stereo and get it on YouTube, maybe.
What do you have it? You have it on demos or something?
Yeah, hard copy demos, yeah.
You could,
and it's on SoundCloud. The different songs are on SoundCloud.
Oh, okay.
But as far as taking the whole album as it is from beginning to end, we had Slaughtering the Saints. We had Satan Rules This World. We had the live party thing. Well, we're on, what do you call it? We're on Metal Archives.
Awesome.
So you can get the, Hymns of Blasphemy was our second demo. That probably, I'm thinking, was our best.
Hymns of, that was what I was going to ask next. If someone isn't familiar, what do you recommend from Satanicon, the second one?
Yeah, I recommend that the most, the Hymns of Blasphemy.
Is that the one you're most proud of?
Yes.
What do you like most about it?
The recording quality and the way songs were sung. It was recorded pretty well. Dirty, but not too dirty. Kind of on the clean side, but not too clean.
Good. So good in between. Right. What about as far as your solo material?
You mean like Mockery and Perversion and Youthful Satanic Ecstasy?
Any of it?
Well, I guess it was basically just a release like, hey, this is what I like to do and I want to share it with the world.
Which one is your favorite, I mean?
Out of all of them?
Yeah.
I know Mockery and Perversion is probably the most popular, and in many ways I like that a lot. Off the top of my head, I would have to say maybe Youthful Satanic Ecstasy.
And which one, what do you like most about that one?
Well, it's kind of like, if only Diane could really be there and hear it and think it's cute and funny. I mean, it's like the fantasy that never was.
I see that one most encapsulates.
Yeah,
that one most fulfills.
Yeah, I guess you could say
the intention of it.
Yeah, the Mockery and Perversion was more like I'd like to be like Grossberger and stir crazy and get what I want, force a short, skinny chick into bed.
But the first one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not actually a rapist. I never raped anyone in my life. I just like to get back at the world and fuck with them because I feel I didn't have enough love in my life.
Yeah, I think that's insightful. I'm surprised at the insight you have about it.
I guess I'm kind of confessing.
Yeah, but I mean, there's objectivity to that, and there's insight in that where...
Yeah. I mean, I think if more people, especially women, got together with me, they would see I'm not so bad after all.
And you've been with women before?
Yes.
Were they satisfied?
There's not too many from the metal scene.
Yeah.
My ex-girlfriend, Kay, she was into black metal. I met her on the magazine Metal Maniacs in the short section. It was like a pen pal section. I don't know if Metal Maniacs is even published anymore.
I don't know if it is. Were these women that you were with satisfied?
Some of them were, at least. Well, with Kay, she actually got pregnant. She told me in recent times that back then when we were together, she got pregnant. I don't know why she waited so long to tell me, but she got pregnant. And then she lost the baby after 2 months.
Wow.
I guess she was afraid I would never talk to her again.
Wow. So it didn't work out with any of them.
Right, yeah.
But
they felt that I wasn't good enough in bed, at least on a constant level.
Oh, okay. What was the problem?
Well, I think part of the problem was most of the time I thought of what I want, what gets me excited, and getting myself off rather than considering her needs.
I see. Is that something you would be willing to work on?
I suppose so.
I would love to see you.
With Kay, I was a little bit more like, I don't want to make you do anything you don't want to do and all that. And I had a little more consideration for her, but the other women, it's like, I just didn't give a damn. Just give me what I want.
I would love to see you enjoying women and sex.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's gotten tough. See, I'm barely paying my bills and living expenses because things have gotten more expensive. I mean, even a dozen eggs, you got to pay $5, $6 for now.
Oh yeah.
I've had to pay my property tax. When I first got here, it was only like a little over 1,000 or 1,100 something, and now it's about 1,500 something. I contested the amount, and they lowered it, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
I'd like to.
That's monthly.
No,
Okay.
I pay property tax once every 6 months.
Okay.
So twice a year.
Yeah.
And like in both February and August now, my auto and home insurance, which I have with the same company bundled together, that comes, and the property tax comes the same month. So $2,000-3,000 goes out just for all of that.
Yeah.
I get Social Security. I get an IRA from an inherited IRA. I make money getting stuff that I curb lawn pick. And I'm working with vocational rehab to try and get a part-time job.
Okay.
Where I can work but not make so much that I lose my Social Security.
Yeah.
I'm almost 64. I'll be 64 on April 15, and I got another 3 years to go before it becomes retirement Social Security.
I see. And it goes up then? Or goes down?
I get cost of living increase most every year since I've been on it, except there was 1 year that they didn't give a cost of living increase.
Okay.
I've had increases as much as like $40 from 1 year to the next.
Okay. And do you see that in the future? Perhaps marriage?
Maybe.
Girlfriend?
Maybe, yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's been a while since I had a girlfriend because it's so hard for me to even get out there and even try.
Yeah.
I'm not really that good with socializing and making friends and putting people at ease in bar and club scenes.
Yeah. I mean,
the majority of the girlfriends I had were from newspaper personal ads, but those are all gone. I did have a girlfriend that I had when I was, I think I was 33, she was 39, and then a few years ago in my 50s, we got back together again, but it only lasted 13 days the second time around.
Okay.
Then she blocked me on Facebook.
What happened?
For one thing, I told her about how many years before I got in trouble for phone harassment.
Yeah.
And she, I guess she just didn't like that too much, and even said something like, if I had known, I would have never gone with you.
Wow. Maybe she had been phone harassed or something?
I don't know. She didn't say.
But whatever it was, she didn't like it.
Yeah.
So if someone is listening now, if there's a woman watching this that wants to go on a date with Joe Offred, what would you say?
What would I say to her?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would probably say, let's go out to a show, or let's go out for dinner, or coffee, I guess it wouldn't be appropriate to say I've been alone so long. They don't care about that. They want to know what I have to offer.
Probably.
Yeah. I wish I lived in a world where people say, oh, the guy needs a break, let's give him a break. But I guess we don't live in that kind of a world.
It's a bit Darwinistic in that regard.
Well, yeah.
What about a bingo hall or something?
I never really got into bingo. I mean, I don't know.
You still have time. You're only 64.
That's true. Almost 64. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot that you could call a hobby. I mean, hobbies take time, patience, and above all, money.
Okay.
But
what's your time spent doing mostly now?
I've spent too much time chatting dirty in chat rooms. I've tried to push myself to do a little Bible reading and even reading of some other books. But by the way, I kept all my Satanist books and stuff, so I can read, for knowledge and to be aware of, what they're about and what they're trying to do. I mean, there's information online too, about them, but I want to know, what I want to be able to tell any Christians I make friends with, if I do, what they're up against. And
I like that.
Right. Because I've even heard it said that some of the people in high places and rich people and people like the Illuminati, they want Christianity to be fed to the working class and the lower class, the plebeians, whatever, and people like me on disability who don't know them very well, so that we believe in it, and it keeps us sedate and in control while they don't believe in it themselves.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I think there might be some truth to that.
I think there's some truth to that. Do you think there's a cabal of powerful people who run the world?
Yes, possibly.
And that they rule it in a way that isn't in the interest of people.
Yeah.
That isn't in the interest of the common people.
Right.
And they thrive on manipulation.
Right.
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
I've even heard it said that, big corporation executives, CEOs and ever, like the president of Merrill Lynch and all that, that they live off the hard work, the hard labor of the people who work with their hands while they sit in their plush offices.
Yeah.
Keeping clean, keeping their heads clean.
Do you think there's any solution for that?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I try to do my best to share information, network as much as I can with people,
right.
and just for people to be empowered. And I hope we can have some form of unity. I think people are very divided these days politically, right. amongst any lines you can think of. Right. I hope we can learn to cooperate with each other so we don't have to.
In all honesty, I sometimes feel like I'm lost. Like, who is Joe Offred really? I mean, I can look at myself in the mirror and say, yeah, that's me. This is me physically and all. But what is my true spirituality? Sometimes I fear I'll never really find it. Or by who I really am, what I really like. I mean, there's probably a lot of hobbies, pastimes I could get into under the right circumstances, but, lack of money, and then being alone most of the time lately, it bears down heavy on me.
Does it?
Yes.
I appreciate you having me over.
No problem. But I know that there's also people out there who will, take advantage of that and try to make me do something stupid if they could.
Try to get you to do things that aren't in your interest.
Yeah, like out of the bar, they might say, "Hey, go for that woman who's single and watch me get my ass beat by some jealous boyfriend."
I see. To set you up.
Yeah.
Well, you've made it this far.
Yeah. That's because I was careful.
But at times you weren't, though.
Yeah.
At times you were very reckless.
Yeah.
And it's a miracle you're here to tell.
Yeah, tell me if I'm trying to remember, when was I reckless that you saw me being reckless?
I'm not saying I saw you being reckless. I'm just telling
from what you heard from others, probably.
No. I'm talking what you told me about your trickster.
That's true. I was kind of reckless. I was certainly reckless when I at 17 with the phone calls to the Rossons and
making rape threats and all sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Pissing off a lot of people. I mean, you were around like what happened with Ray was really heavy. So there's definitely been some up and down moments, and there's definitely been some craziness.
Right.
But you've emerged out of it, and I have respect for the contribution you've given us. I appreciate your music. I appreciate your songs.
Thank you.
And frankly, it's an honor to be here, and I really appreciate you having me, and I really appreciate you sitting down and talking with me today.
Yeah, no problem.
Anything else you want to add to anyone who may be watching?
Let's see. Trying to think. I sometimes envy those guys that I've heard of guys where a girl threatens to leave them, and then they say, "Fine, I'll just go out and find somebody else," and those guys can do it. Sometimes I envy them. I mean, they got it made. I mean, it must be nice to be them.
To be able to take it or leave it.
Yeah, to be so confident and detached. I mean, that's what they say. Guys are supposed to be confident and detached. And when a girl leaves them, no, I, on the other hand, would be saying, "Oh, please don't leave me. I'll be so alone. I can't live without you." Sometimes I wish I wasn't that weak.
Yeah. Do you blame that on anything?
I don't know what to blame it on. It's just the way I am, I guess. I just don't have that cold, detached personality.
Stoic.
It's not me. It's not my nature, I guess.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate your openness, and I'm rooting for you.
Thank you.
And I definitely don't think this is the end of the story.
No, I don't think so, if I can help it.
Damn straight.
Yeah. I don't know how much time, being almost 64, I'm not sure how much time I got left on the face of the earth or how my health will be. I've been trying to push myself to do some exercising with weights and all. I know I'm not going to be like I was when I was 19, but I was getting to where I was having a hard time open vacuum packed jars of food and drink, and I don't want to be like that. I want to be at least strong enough to, open them.
Do you feel at peace with aging?
In a way, yeah.
Are you feeling more accepting of death as you approach a later season of your life?
Yeah, I would say so.
Or have you been able to it seems like you've been able to make meaning out of some of the experiences you've had before.
Yeah.
I feel like talking to you were able to deliver me insight, and you were able to contextualize some of those things. Is that something you're happy about?
Yeah.
Does that give you peace?
Right. Yeah, some people think that I haven't changed a bit. Some people don't forgive me, but there's others. I have a Lutheran pastor friend who sees a change in me, and a Methodist pastor friend who sees a change in me. And then I have a former boss, Rachel is her real name, but she goes by Ray, R-A-E, and her husband. They see a change in me. I told them I'm not the same person I once was.
Yeah, I can see that. You have had.
I've been trying to be a better human being. I've been trying to be good to people. Not long ago, I was coming home from shopping Westside Market. I was coming up Linden Avenue in Rocky River, passing by the back of Lutheran West High School by a football field, and I saw a soccer ball come flying out into the road ahead of me. I looked to the left because there was Linden Park. There was nobody there. I look on the right. I see some girls wondering what they're going to do now. I stopped the car. I put the flashes on, pulled aside, jumped out and said, "Don't worry, I'll get your ball back to you." And I threw it back to them. And I went on my way. It was like a little exercise. And see, when I was friends with John, he won Scooter Lincoln. He told me, you just got to do things for people and not expecting anything in return. But for me, I must admit that sometimes was a tall order for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember at 27, so I was hanging out with a few people, this older guy and this guy a little younger than me, and this girl. And I said, what do I get in return if I take you here or there? And she said, what do you want in return besides sexual favors? And which was exactly what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah, but this time I threw it back to them. Besides, they're minors, I don't want to get in trouble, so I just threw the ball back to them and told them to have a nice day. And when I got my vehicle, went back on my way. So it was also a little exercise in doing something without expecting anything in return. Not that I haven't done anything like that.
Yeah. But I think that's great, Joe.
Thanks.
And I don't think this is the end. And I love to see what happens next.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome.